Congratulations on this film. This is one of those films I think that every music fan should see, so congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So tell us a little bit about how you became involved with this film and what the Briggs mean to you.
Well, I had been a fan of the Briggs ever since I was really young, like a teenager, and I I got a chance to meet Joey at a bar outside the show that he was playing back in Boston when I was living there for college. And we got to talking about movies and music and stuff, and I asked him if he'd be willing to share some of the Briggs music for a soundtrack for a film that I was making at the time. And the rights for the Briggs songs were kind of tied up with the record labels, but he was doing a side project called Joey Briggs, and he gave me some music for my first film. And I kept in touch with him after that, and when I moved to Los Angeles, we started shooting music videos and rehearsals and stuff for the Briggs and also for Joey Briggs. And yeah, we just kind of like started collaborating that way. And when they went back on tour in 2015, they asked me to come along.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about, you said that you'd been a fan ever since you were a kid. Tell us a little bit about how you first discovered their music and what their music first meant to you when you first started to listen to it.
I had a really big like punk period, I guess, in my life where I was in a band and I was practicing music, and I just really kind of fell in love with the whole scene. I was going to shows a lot, and I must have gotten turned on to the Briggs from a friend of mine. I'm not really sure who, but yeah, I had a bunch of friends that were all into it too. So just yeah, that like, how would you describe it? Kind of like Celtic punk. It had kind of a Boston vibe to it, and I fell in love with all that kind of music.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about what it was like preparing for this film to go on tour with the band, because of course these kind of films are very, very different to other films. You can't really sit down and plan a lot because you don't know what's going to happen. So what was that like preparing for this film?
Yeah, that's true. That was my first tour, going on tour with the band. So I didn't really know what to expect exactly. It was definitely like a novel experience for me, and my first like kind of full-length documentary shoot. So it was a bit of a learning curve for sure. And what I knew that I needed was like a lightweight camera that would be always powered up and always ready to shoot. So I ended up picking up a little Blackmagic pocket camera for that project when I went on tour, and that ended up working really well because it's very small. I could just keep it in my hands or like wrapped around on a strap on my neck all the time, and always have it accessible and handy for whenever something started to happen. I could start shooting, or when I got the sense that the band was going to liven up a little bit. There was a bit of a rhythm to it, being in the van, where I knew people would start getting more lively whenever the van stopped and people got out. So I was always started rolling the camera as soon as I felt like we were about to get out of the van.
Yeah. Do you feel that pressure as well that you might miss something really, really important that happens? Because of course, when you're shooting a film, a regular film, and you're the director, you're calling the shots. But with a documentary, things are happening around you. Do you feel that pressure of, I need to capture this, what happens if I miss something?
Yeah, there's definitely a pressure to it, and you're right, because my experience before this had been in narrative films, and I was used to having a lot of control over what I was filming and planning everything out and like storyboarding it and just making sure that everything was like covered. So yeah, that pressure is definitely on, and you have to balance what you think is going to be usable with what you think might not be usable in the end. So you have to edit kind of as you go, and it's probably inevitable that you're going to miss some things that you wish you had recorded, but you try to get as many good moments as you can, and when you piece those together, hopefully you forget about all the things that you missed.
How much footage did you end up having to go through to put together the final product, and also how do you go through that footage then to find a narrative for the documentary?
Well, I had footage from the band spanning from about 10 years. Just like random kind of little interviews I would do with them, or rehearsals I would shoot, and sort of behind the scenes things. So I compiled all that stuff together, and then I added the footage from the tour, and I think I put it on like a editing timeline. It was like 25 or 26 hours of footage. So it was definitely a lot to go through. I ended up going through it a bit with my first editor, but really, like, I kind of relied on the different editors that I had hired to put together the rough cut. And then after I got a rough cut back, I kind of understood where it needed to go, and I just started editing it myself from there.
Yeah. You talked about having that personal relationship with Joey after meeting him in Boston. Tell us a little bit about what Joey is like to be around. What kind of guy is he?
He's a highly creative person, as you can probably tell from his music. Yeah. He's very intelligent, and he's very professional about his music, too. I think some people would probably expect to go into like a punk documentary and just expect the band to be wild and crazy, and kind of like off their I don't know what the word is, but kind of like uncontrollable types. But Joey and Jason and the rest of the band are all very professional. Like, they don't get into stupid drama, and it's kind of it's sort of like a, I don't know what the phrase is, like a by the book type of band, and I think that might be surprising to some people.
Definitely. And how were the rest of the band feeling about the documentary? Because, of course, you had that great relationship with Joey. What was it like sitting down and talking to the rest of the band about what the hopes were for the documentary?
The band's been super supportive. It's been great because, it's definitely like, it feels a bit like an intrusion to bring a camera into their lives for the tour, and I was trying to make sure that it didn't feel like an intrusion while I was shooting it, but then obviously I had to show it to them afterwards, and I was, just a little bit concerned about what they were going to think of it, but it turned out really well for their reaction, and they were all very supportive of it, so I really appreciate all of them for that.
I loved one of the reviews of the documentary that it said that this documentary avoids all the pitfalls of reunion documentaries. How important was that to you as a filmmaker to make something very different to the reunion documentaries that we've seen in the past?
It's an interesting quote. It's an interesting thing to hear. I can't say that it was really a goal of mine to make it different than other documentaries, not cognitively. I was just trying to make the most accurate depiction I could of my experience with the band, and try to, portray them kind of as I see them in a film. And I think it speaks to their nature that it doesn't come across like documentaries about other bands, because I think they're really unique. So that's probably why it feels that way.
The other thing too I love about this documentary is it's going to introduce a lot of people to a band that perhaps they haven't heard of, because to be honest, the Briggs weren't really big here in Australia. I was into alternative music growing up, and I'd come across their music a couple of times, but I know a lot of people here in Australia wouldn't know who the band was. Did you feel when you were making this documentary that this was going to open up their music to a much wider audience around the world as well?
I definitely hope so, because obviously I love the band, I love their music, and I think it deserves the widest audience possible. And yeah, I'm aware about, the fact that they're not like a household name with everybody, but I think that's kind of part of what intrigues me about them, is that I feel like they're one of the bands that deserves to be, but didn't quite reach that status. Yeah. And I talked with Joey about that, kind of I kind of go in depth with about that with him in the film, and I think that kind of carries over into the theme of the movie about being a creative and what it's like to put yourself out there and have these goals and dreams, and what do you do if they don't quite reach your expectations.
Definitely. And where to now for you? Will you continue working with Joey on other projects, and will you look at doing more music documentaries in the future now that we can see that you're a brilliant filmmaker in that genre?
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, definitely. I'm working on another documentary right now with Jesse Hughes and Eagles of Death Metal. We were just in England. I was filming the tour all around England for about 2 weeks, which was a great experience. It was nice having it not be my first time out on the road. And I'm definitely still shooting stuff with Joey. We just shot a music video for his new side project, his new band called Vintage War. So that music video is going to be released pretty soon. And yeah, I love it. I love working with people that I admire and bands that I like, and just the kind of crazy improvisational nature of shooting documentary too.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, to wrap up, what would you like to say to people out there before they sit down to watch Gridlocked?
I think the film kind of speaks for itself. I would hope that people will give it a shot, even if they don't know who the band is, because that's not really, I think, necessary. So I guess I'd want to say, even if you haven't heard of the band, go check it out, because it's about music, it's about creativity, it's about being an artist, and I think it can appeal to a wide audience.
Awesome. Well, mate, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. It's been an honor having you on the show, and I cannot wait to see your next project as well.